tweet from the American Cancer Society. They've said they're going to be accepting Dogecoin. There it is. Dogecoin is now officially on our list of accepted cryptocurrencies. COVID-19 reduced our ability to fund cancer research by 50% in 2020. Donating is now more important than ever. Use Doge to make it easy. Amazing stuff, American Cancer Society. All right, joining us from the United Kingdom to discuss these stories is David Bell, founder of Macrodesiac and also growth director at TradingView UK. David, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Wanted to get your take. Excellent stuff. Thank you for joining us. There's so much to discuss here. I guess let's start with the Dogecoin acceptance from the American Cancer Society. What do you make of that?
You know, I think that this is more of a PR exercise than, being a valid funding source. The reason being is that the crypto markets are highly volatile. And at the end of the day, what we're seeing in the crypto markets, especially in these kind of altcoins like Doge, is a really big swing between, price rising, price falling lower. And what does that mean then for actually obtaining the dollar value of the Doge coins that they hold? I mean, you saw in that tweet that it said that their donations had dropped 50% in 2020 due to coronavirus. So I think this is quite an easy way to, obtain some kind of cash inflow from people who might have experienced a massive rise in the value of their Doge coins, so they're willing to give some away. I mean, it makes sense from that perspective, but I don't necessarily see Dogecoin as, a treasury instrument in the same way that possibly Bitcoin could be. And even then, I see that as being slightly flimsy, purely because of the volatility and the nature of crypto.
What about the spat between the French and where you are over in the UK, them possibly halting access of U.S. financial firms because of this whole fishing rights matter that's going on? It looks like this post-Brexit, divorce doesn't seem to be working out. They keep seeing these flare-ups continue to happen between the UK and nations like France and other members of the EU.
On this one about what the city does. The city is 95% involved in wholesale financial activity. That is banking intermediaries, regulated institutions. A lot of the equivalence clauses cover retail activity, retail and SME activity. So I think there's way too much sort of impetus and too much impact put on getting equivalence when a lot of the business conducted between the EU and the UK is actually wholesale activity. It slightly falls outside of those equivalence clauses. I mean, for example, if a UK firm, wants to operate within the EU and accept EU clients, all they have to do is open up a subsidiary. Now, in the banking realm, what's likely going to happen is that a lot of the risk, so a lot of the actual activities in terms of maybe executing trades and things like this, will actually be sent back to London. So London will keep doing, all of the difficult stuff, basically. I mean, Frankfurt is number 9 in the list of world financial hubs, London's second, and we interchange with New York quite a lot. So you can kind of see possibly the difference in infrastructure, the difference in expertise that London has versus some of the European financial centres. So there's almost a stickiness that London has, and it forces, these subsidiaries to actually conduct their business back in London. Even with the share dealing being moved to Amsterdam, that was really just where the trades were going to be booked, and all of the clearing was still going to be done by London Clearing House. Okay, in their Paris office, but still, we're still using the technology, the expertise that's based in London.
Thank you so much for that. Since we're on the matter of trade, I want to ask you about this drop in Chinese imports into the United States. It's being attributed to the tariffs imposed by the Trump administration, but You've got a different view. If we actually got some data on there it is, shipping costs, rising China shipping costs. There, Shanghai, Los Angeles, Shanghai, New York. The week-on-week rises, double-digit there. Is this what you would point to for the reduction in imports from China into the U.S.?
Absolutely. I mean, I personally think that this is the primary reason as to why we're seeing commodity prices increase so massively, and why we're actually seeing quite a lot of this inflation pressure. People keep putting it down to, the money supply increasing and things like that. It's totally irrelevant. We've seen the money supply increase post 2008 for, a decade and a bit, and we didn't see monumental inflation. So this recent shock in the price of goods, I think, is really down to supply chain issues. And you can see there, for example, I mean, I've got it up on my computer here. Shanghai to Los Angeles, in 1 year, the cost of shipping a 40-foot container has gone up by 239%. Shanghai to New York, 171%. Now, what's funny is going the other way, Los Angeles to Shanghai has only gone up 16% in a year. So you're kind of seeing these really big disparities of almost imported inflation, in my view. And this clogging up of that one single supply chain from China to the US is causing further capacity constraints in the US as well on things such as, iron ore, copper, what else, lumber. All of these commodities that we've recently seen rise in price, we can probably, attribute it down to tight supply chains. It makes the most sense from my perspective, and I think you have to use kind of Occam's razor sometimes. When you see such an abnormal historical price move in terms of the shipping costs, I think it's most likely going to be due to that.
Thank you so much for that, David. A couple minutes to go. I just want to get a quick take on the firms pressuring the ECB to extend, capital guidance to allow them to continue business. What do you make of that?
It's a funny one because already the European Banking Authority allows European or Eurozone banks to hold their domestic debt at a risk weight of 0. I mean, across the Eurozone, banks are the ones that hold the majority of their domestic sovereign debt. If you recall the SLR exemption that the US just got rid of, just I think at the end of March, it's the same as that, except the US has kept it only for about a year, whereas the Eurozone has had it for I think about half a decade, if not longer. So they've already got very, very loose sort of constraints there in the Eurozone banking sector. And I'm not really too sure how much more this can really help. I think Eurozone banks are already seeing a decline in return on equity, even though they're probably one of the best value plays that you can see out there. But I'm not 100% sure as to what the benefit is. Perhaps it's purely just to keep, the system a bit more liquid, just while the EU recovery fund gets ratified, so that they have good optics. So that's it.
David Bell, founder of Macrodesiac, also growth director at TradingView UK. Thank you so much for taking us through those headlines, David. Appreciate your insights.